Right, guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's nice to see there are 57 people on here already watching. Let me just say, first and foremost, really do appreciate you spending this time with me on a Sunday evening. We do these at 9:30, and it always amazes me how many people actually end up coming onto these sessions. So thank you so much. So let me just give you an idea of what's going to happen this evening. You probably already know about it because I have spoken about it on a number of videos already. But this session is going to be focused on pension specifically. And the kind folks at Pensionbee are actually helping me out with this session. They're going to be answering questions, talking a little bit about what they do within the space as well, because one of the big challenges that we face with pensions is that the perception sometimes for them can be counterproductive and negative, but they are a really, really important instrument to use, certainly when you're looking at planning your financial life. And it's always better to have something than not have it at all. And if you follow me for any period of time, you will know that I always share the story of my dad. My dad started to panic about a pension at the age of 58, not really having anything at all. And, you know, that was something that always stuck with me all the way through my career through financial services. And it's one of my big fears right now that, you know, I could retire and have absolutely nothing. So planning is absolutely key. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring in Martin from Pensionbee fairly shortly. We will be taking some questions. But what we're going to do is we're going to do an introduction to Martin, do an introduction to Pensionbee, talk a little bit about what a pension is, some of the misconceptions that we have out there, why pensions are actually important. Then we're going to talk about a little bit about the planning, and he'll show you maybe some of the calculators. And then from that point, we'll then open up and take some questions. If you're self-employed, this is going to be a really good session for you as well. If you've worked in a number of businesses where, you know, you've moved from that employer, gone on to something else, you've also changed addresses and you have pension pots that are just lying around, then this session will be really, really, really good for you as well, because you can talk about consolidating. And I'll run some numbers by you a bit later on that are actually quite staggering when it comes to how much money we leave on the table as well. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, Carly, members group. Let me just bring in Martin right now. So Martin, welcome to this evening's live chat. Thanks for being here, mate.
Hi, Pete. Happy to be here. Hello, everyone else on the chat.
Perfect. So let's start off and just do a little bit of an introduction to you, because I know Rachel and I know what's his Jasper. I know Jasper. Jasper's been on the podcast before, and when I asked you guys to come and do this, I knew that it was a Sunday at 9:30, and you were the one who I wouldn't say drew the short straw, but you volunteered as the guy to basically come on and on this live and answer some questions.
Happy to be here. I'm a night owl anyway, so this is fine. Happy to be doing this. Got my cup of tea, so I'm ready to go.
Good man. So I need you to give a little bit of an introduction to you and what you do at Pensionbee, then overall, really Pensionbee as well.
Sure. So I'm Martin, and I'm the head of product at Pensionbee. What the product function does at Pensionbee is to listen to customer feedback, and also see what's happening in the industry, in the market, and then develop our product to meet those needs of consumers and also what the market's telling us. So we'll do things like listen to customer feedback across a range of channels. We hear feedback through Google Play reviews, App Store, Apple reviews, Trustpilot, etc. And what customers tell us about what they want to see from their pension product, we then take that insight and try and distill it into making additional features or enhancing existing features that we have, and making the product a lot better for you guys to use. And what Pensionbee does, so it started off as a company that aims to consolidate people's pension pots. So the data tells us that within the UK market, people have about 11 different jobs throughout their career. And so they end up having different pots all around the place. And what Pensionbee does is allow people a really simple online way to bring those all together, and have them into, on one new online portal, one new online plan, and allow people to take control of their pensions and hit our vision of helping people to achieve a happy retirement.
Fantastic. Now, I know that your founder, Romy, she started the company and she found that the whole process of transferring pensions over was an absolute nightmare. And that's really how Pensionbee came to be. And I can kind of attest to that because I've worked in the industry for some time. Transferring pensions it's a nightmare, especially if you haven't been with an employer for a long period of time. You don't actually know your pension account number. You don't know who actually administers the scheme that you were in. And you guys have really kind of trailblazed making that process simple and digitizing it as well, more importantly.
Yeah, exactly right. And the story there that you allude to, Romy, when she started the company, she was trying to move a workplace pension, and as a finance professional, found it quite difficult to work through all the paperwork and understanding the ins and outs of all the different fee structures and whatnot. And that's exactly what we're trying to achieve here: is to remove barriers to people interacting with their pensions. So removing the paperwork, right? We're digital first. We hate the fact that we have to use paper still because of legacy providers, and we're really trying to push industry to move away from that and be more digital and send things electronically. And yeah, it's getting in control and getting on top of your pensions from different employers and understanding the fees, because you'll find a lot of historical pensions will have all sorts of different fee structures applied to them. And so what Pensionbee tries to do is have one simple all-in fee displayed on our webpage, very, very clear for customers to understand and compare against not only our plans but also in the market as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start off with some of the basic stuff. I know this stuff, you know this stuff, but for people who are tuning in who have heard the phrase pension but may not necessarily know exactly what it means, let's just talk about what a pension is and why it's important.
Sure. So in the simplest terms, a pension is an investment, right? And it's an investment that's, I guess, locked away until people are older and nearing retirement. And the term retirement is quite an interesting one, because none of us are going to retire at probably not even in our 60s. We're going to be working for a longer time, because people are getting older and you live longer and you're a long time in retirement. So why would you just stop work in your 60s and whatnot? But so we're finding that people don't move towards this world of just having a hard stop on their work life. They might taper down into working a bit more part-time or consulting, all this sort of stuff. So retirement's a very sort of fuzzy concept, but to simplify what we're talking about here, we're going to treat the word retirement as being able to withdraw from your pension at age 55, because that's the current rules around taking money out of your personal pension. It's 55. Which is different to the state pension. State pension 67 before you can start getting that. So just important to understand the differences there. And so what a pension is, it's a savings vehicle effectively. And what happens now in the market, we've got auto-enrollment pensions out there, right? So you work for a company, and that company has to then contribute to your pension pot. And so the benefit there is that you can't touch the money until you're 55, and it's going to move to 57 in the next couple of years. And by the time we retire, it's going to be whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so it stops you sort of like delving into it and using that money for something else. It's locked away there with the the hope that it'll grow over time, and that when you do get to retirement, you'll be able to take money out of that and live a happier retirement. It's interesting, I come from Australia. You can probably tell from my accent that we've had something similar to auto enrollment for ages. And when I started off in the workforce as an 18-year-old, I thought, I wish I could just have that money and invest it myself. I'm sure I can do better. I was a kid. How can you do better than the institutional investors? So it's, I'm glad that I had to have my money locked away into a pension scheme and a superannuation in Australia that I can't touch. And now it's grown to what it's grown to, and it's there for me when I go to retire. And same thing now in the UK market with auto enrollment. It's a really, really important thing that that we've got going on now.
Yeah, and I think with us, we have been late to the game in terms of the legislation of companies have to pay into a pension for you. And this is my experience, guys, because I started my career in financial services 15 years ago, 16 years this year. And when I first started, they had defined benefit schemes at the time, final salary pensions. And for one of the big banks that I worked for, they basically, on my induction, said, we can pay in X amount into a pension for you, or we can give you the cash. Now, me being in my 20s, well, I'll take the cash, thank you very much, because it would be very nice beer money at the weekends. They didn't really explain what a pension was, what it basically did. And at that point, we didn't have that legislation where they had to pay in on my behalf. So me being me, I missed out on a final salary scheme, a defined benefit contribution policy, pension that would have been very, very healthy and very, very helpful for me when I do finally get to retire. So I guess that kind of leads us on to kind of just talking about a little bit about the misconceptions around pension, because one of the big ones I get is that some people often don't understand that it is an investment. People think that often it's something else, but it is an investment. So, any other misconceptions that you come across commonly at Pensionbee?
Yeah, for sure. That's a key one. And I like your point there about using it as beer money. See, I would have been the same, and this is why it's important to have it. Have these workplace pensions. But misconceptions. I do hear a lot of people talking about the rate of interest return on their pension, and I think that's because people assume it's like a bank account, and it's just you earn interest on cash and things like fixed income, bonds, etc. But a pension doesn't need to be that. It can be that depending on what plan you pick. But in the majority of instances, it'll be invested just like any other investment in the stock market, or it'll have portions of it in the stock market, some in bonds, some in cash as well. But it's not just interest that you're earning here; it's actually returns on that investment, whether it be stocks and shares and all the rest. So I think it's quite key to get that across. That it's people think pension really boring. I don't want to talk about it, but it's important to talk about it now when you're young, because you do have the opportunity to grow, because it's like any other investment, right? And of course, past performance isn't a guarantee of future returns, all that kind of stuff. But in the main, we see that markets do move up over a long period of time, and the idea is to have your pension sitting aside for a long period of time until you retire, and then can draw down from it.
Absolutely. I think that's a really important point, guys. And a lot of the people who watch my channel here, and a lot of you that will be dialed in here, will probably be working in businesses right now. So you'll have the ability to have an auto enrollment scheme. You may have worked in previous businesses previously as well. And I know that there's a lot of self-employed people. I'm just looking at the questions here. There is a self-employed question which we'll come to shortly. But yeah, it's really important to remember that this is an investment that is going to be invested in the stock market over time for you on your behalf, where you're getting free money from an employer and you're also getting the tax roll up from the government. Can you just explain how that actually works for everybody? Because I keep saying to people, right, that it's probably the only time where you're actually going to get free money from the government, where the government is actually giving you money for a purpose. Can you just explain how that actually works?
Sure. And that's also one of the important misconceptions, is that people think that pensions are hard to deal with and they can't interact with them. But you can indeed contribute to them whenever you like. Certainly with Pensionbee, you can. There's no minimum contributions. There's no frequency set. You can throw into it as you want. And what happens if you're a personal you've got a personal pension, or you're a sole trader, even depending on your tax circumstances, you'll get tax relief at source, it's called, from HMRC. And how that works, it actually turns into what we call a tax top-up of 25%. Now, the maths here is important, because people think, well, the tax rate is 20%. How are you getting 25% extra? So the way, let's do a simple calculation. We've got £100, let's say, right? Nice even numbers. And if you're the 20% of 100 is £20, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where the tax relief comes from. And if you were to pay in £80 of your own money, you would get £20 put on top. Now, 20 of 80 is 25%. And so that's where that 25% tax top-up comes from.
Yep.
So if you were to pay in £100, you'd get £25 put in on top. And we claim that automatically from HMRC for our customers that do make those personal contributions or sole trader contributions. And, you can see instantly, it's a 25% return. Now, where else in the market are you getting 25% instant returns like that? And it's compounding, right? You get 25% now. You sit it in there, let it grow over time, and then it's going to, hopefully grow, compounding that return, and get you to a happier retirement.
Fantastic. So I know that there are a couple of things around the planning, and because one of the big questions that we often get, and I'm sure that this will pop up in the questions this evening, is, right, okay, so if I'm going to retire X amount of years into the future, what should be paid into a pension? It's a common question. I don't know whether it's something that, I always say that there's never a clear-cut answer to it, but I know that you do have some tools that you have on the Pensionbee website that people can actually use to kind of gauge for themselves what level of investment they need to make in order for it to result in a pension pot of X, for example. So can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I can. Actually, do you want me to share my screen? I can show that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So we do have two calculators available to people to play around with. So share that. Hopefully you can see us sort of a circle chart on your screens right now. Cool. So what you can do, go to pensionbee.com/pension-calculator. And what you can do, you can plug in a couple of basic details: desired income per year, your current age, pull that down, drag it up if you want to, your retirement age that you want to retire at, your current pension pot, move it down, move it up, whatever it might be, and how much you want to pay into it on a monthly basis. And what it'll do is tell you if you're on track to achieve your desired retirement income of £24,000 a year in this example. Very, very simplistic calculator. Doesn't take into account any personal circumstances, of course, nor can we. We don't provide financial advice, but it's a quick and simple way to get a sort of an idea of your current circumstance based on what you're putting in, what you've currently got, and what you want to retire on. Now, that's on the public-facing website. For existing customers, people that have signed up to Pensionbee and transferred in a pension to Consolidate, or indeed are self-employed people and have set up contributions, what they have access to is this retirement planner within their Beehive, we call it, so the logged-in state, the online dashboard, and it's a bit more detailed because we have a bit more detail on you, right? And so you can say what age you want to retire at, and it'll tell you your current target versus your current projection. Now, this is a test account, so take it with a grain of salt. But I've just set it to £50,000 to start with, and it's got no contributions going into it. But what you can do is play around and say, all right, I want to earn or be able to draw down £20,000 annually. I'm way off my goal here, right? So what do I need to do? Okay, if I move up the personal contribution amount a little bit, I can see that chart starts changing. Now the yellow, the difference there is 5% is the midpoint, so the solid yellow line, and the range is 8% up here, down to 3% here. So we can't predict the future, but these are the assumptions that are built into the tool. And so you can plug in a couple of other things, employer contributions, one-off lump sums, and you can all of a sudden see that you're getting closer to your goal. Now, it's interesting too that we've got it pegged down to age 100, and the reason we have that is that humans are just living longer, right? And so we thought we don't want to underestimate what people may need to retire on. So let's go for the 100-year life and say this is going to burn down to age 100, and this is probably what you're going to have in your pot to be able to live a life that you can be happy with. And £20,000 a year, think about it now. Could you live on that? It's questionable. And so, you've got to really start thinking about getting in sooner. Doing this earlier is obviously going to make it better for you. So you can see if I'm dragging up the range here, it's going to bring down the projection, and so people are further off their goals. That's an important thing to try and get your mind across. And we really want people to really engage with their pension and not leave it too late, because if you do leave it too late, then this is what you get, right? You get this massive gap, and you may not be able to live a happy retirement.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, so there are a couple of things on there that I think are really, really important, just to kind of like make sure that we actually also bring into this conversation as well, is the fact that starting early with this is really, really, really important. And you've mentioned something that is key. So I've worked in the pension arena for a number of years. I did a massive stint with a pension provider specifically. And one of the conversations that we always used to have back then was life expectancy. And I don't think that we talk about that enough in the context of what it means in today's society and some of the culture and ideas that we have when it comes to things like financial independent, retiring early, because the practical implications of actually being able to make that happen can be quite stark, particularly when you look at life expectancy ranges actually moving more towards 90 and 100 years old. So if you were to retire at, say, let's just be generous and say age 55, right, being the earliest, with a life expectancy, and everybody can go and check out what their life expectancy is online. I did a video a few months ago, which I'll probably link in the description to this. It's a government website. You can plug in your date of birth, your gender, and it will tell you what your life expectancy is. Now, for me, I think it was something like 90, I think it was about 90, 92 roughly. So if I retired at age 55, then I would be in retirement for almost 40 years. And this is a key consideration in terms of, can you generate a big enough pot in a pension to last you for 40 odd years, maybe 50 years if you retire at 55, and your life expectancy is going to take you well into the 90s, which it's crazy to say, but is more of a reality now. And people are aging. Well, it feels as though people are aging a lot less quickly than previous generations. I know that you've got the calculator there, but what's your take on the life expectancy angle of retirement planning and retirement and pensions in general?
Yeah, for sure. It's like what you're saying, and what we've touched on. People are living longer, and they really need to focus on that fact and try and plot that out. So that calculator that I was just showing you guys allows you to sort of model that and say, okay, it's always going to hit 100 as the endpoint, and so that yellow graph should have been along the grey the whole time there, so you know how much money you need in your pension, and you can model that out by changing the factors there. But I think, yeah, there's a lot of people that talk about, oh, I want to retire early. I don't want to work anymore. But really think about that statement. Like you're saying, 40 years out of the workforce. Not only will you have enough money, but what are you going to do with yourself? Like, there's a lot of considerations here, and I think there's a lot written about the FIRE movement, right? Financial independence, retire early, and people want to get to that, and that's great. If you can achieve it, go for it. Like, power to you. But really do the sums, and factor in things you can't even plan for. So if you quit work at age 35, and you haven't planned for ill health or a family, or your car breaking down, that can really throw your sums off. And so having this planning around what you're going to retire on is actually really, really, really important. And again, it's really important to do it now. Do it early, before it's too late, and you don't have that time frame to pay into a pension and let it grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, I know that, if you follow my channel, you know that I do kind of I err on the side of making sure that everybody understands both sides of the coin when it comes to anything that you hear on social media. And I think, given my experience, I come from a very different angle than most people, because from a planning point of view, even when we were looking at this kind of stuff as a financial advisor, there would be so many things that we would plug into that financial plan. We will plug in, for many people, long-term care. That in itself can be a huge drain on pension resources, because let's face it, if you want to go into a decent care home, and if you require the need to go into a decent care home, that costs thousands of pounds per week, depending on where you are and what kind of amenities you essentially want to have. And this is all about having a comfortable retirement. It goes back to everything that I say on this channel. At its core, it's all about, what are you doing this for? What is your goal? After all of this is said and done, do you want to be in a position where you've planned for this and you've got enough in the contingency in a pension pot to make sure that you can live the life that you want? Nobody wants to, work through their lives 40, 45, maybe even 50 years, get to retirement, and have to compromise on the lifestyle that they've come accustomed to during their working life. Nobody wants to do that. So planning early and taking these steps early on is absolutely key. I do want to talk a little bit about the actual consolidation side of what you actually do, because I think this is really, really important, and one that I've done myself. And if you have worked in a number of places, is really, really key. So how easy is it for people to actually just consolidate pension? Because the number for pensions, by the way, that are left on the table, and this is according to a report back in 2018, apparently we leave on the table 19.8 billion pounds in unclaimed pensions currently. It's a huge amount of money. So how easy is it for people to consolidate now?
Yeah, certainly there is a lot left out there, as you say. It is quite easy. So with us, it's a 5-minute sign up process. You go in, name and email address, and some personal details, of course, age, national insurance number, all that stuff, because it is a financial service. And then you give us the details of your existing pensions. Now, the more details you give us, obviously, the better it is, that we can go contact those providers and say, hey, this person wants to transfer their pension to Pensionbee. And so, policy number helps, the name of the provider, obviously, we need, but give us all that detail, and we can contact them on your behalf, and then pull those pensions in. Now, there are some nuances that it's not always super simple. So defined benefit is a term you used earlier, Pete, and defined benefits, because they are quite a good benefit, right? They're actually quite a good pension. We won't just transfer those in straight away, depending on the value of that pension. Indeed, there's actually laws around it, that if it's worth over £30,000, that you need to get a financial advisor to have signed off on it, or at least have sought advice. They don't have to say yes or no, but you've got to have to have seen a financial advisor. So there are some things that can't move across. That statement's also true for army pensions, NHS pensions, some government pensions, because they're actually quite good benefits where they are, and so they just don't transfer. But in the main, we've defined contribution pensions as the space we play in, and where the majority of the market now plays in. It's quite simple. And also, we don't always need the policy number, right? Like if you're certain it's with XYZ provider, we'll contact them. We've got a letter of authority from you, because you digitally sign when you sign up. And so we'll contact them and say, hey, can we please have the details on this customer? and then we'll get the pension details if there are any pension funds there, and then we can still transfer it. And we also engage customers throughout the process. So if there's stuff that needs to be, if there's something strange, or it's not strange, but interesting about the pension that they need to know about. So for example, if there's an exit fee or a transfer fee the existing provider wants to charge, if it's above £10, we'll get in touch with the customer and say, hey, are you comfortable going ahead with that? There's also some providers out in the market that we know their fee structure. And so when you're adding that pension to sign up to us, we'll ask you up front and say, hey, we know this provider charges whatever it is. Are you cool to go ahead with it? Yes, no, off you go, and off we go to consolidate the pension. So yeah, really, really, really seamless. And we try to make it that way. And you can keep track of where your pension transfers are at within the pensionbee.com logged in portal, or even our mobile app as well. So we're trying to be there with customers, and wherever they want to check in on their pension, they can do so and see how it's tracking.
Perfect. And just to elaborate on something that Martin's mentioned there, I try not to use jargon, but defined benefits, final salaries, those are some terms that we use. If you do have one of those, you do need to seek financial advice. And the reason for that is because once upon a time, if you worked for a business, and this is the one that I missed out on, guys, by the way, that I didn't get explained what it basically meant. It meant that they would basically pay me an income based on the final salary as when I left there. So for example, back when I was with the bank, if I was earning £25,000, for example, they would pay me a final salary based on the salary that I was on at the time and my length of service. There was a formula that they would go through. So £25,000 might equate, for example, to something like, I don't know, £5,000 per year. But that amount is guaranteed for life. It is often inflation linked. And because you've got the guarantees there, it means that you know that you've got £5,000 per year coming in from this particular source. Pensions don't operate in that fashion anymore. So if you do have a final salary or defined benefit pension, you would need to seek financial advice specifically for that, because you need to know exactly what you would be giving up if you were to transfer over to another provider. And it doesn't even have to be Pensionbee. If you're transferring it out, you're essentially going to be giving up some form of guaranteed income in the future. So it's really, really important that you understand and are aware of that, guys. Let's talk a little bit about the self-employed, Martin.
Yeah.
Because self-employed people obviously running their own businesses, a lot of time it's where do they actually start, and who do they use, what should they contribute? Those are common questions that I often get. I know that you have a self-employed option to help people now.
Yeah, we're really proud of this. We released it in January this year, so it's new for us, and it's an underserved market. There are people out there that haven't worked for another employer before, or they're starting their own business, and so they need to fund themselves into retirement. And so we thought, okay, let's find a solution for these customers that aren't able to consolidate because they don't have anything to consolidate, but they are self-employed and taking control of their financial future. So we've got a route for them now, pensionbee.com/self employed pension, and you go there, and similar sort of sign up process, name, email, all that sort of good stuff, and then you're able to move through the sign-up flow and jump straight into setting up contributions. And there's no minimum contribution that we have, and there's no frequency that we set. Like I was saying earlier, you can set up a contribution as a sole trader or as a director of a limited company, depends on your circumstance. And there's different tax benefits for either of those scenarios. So, we talked about tax relief and relief at source for people that are paying into a personal pension and those that are sole traders. But similarly, for limited company directors, whilst they don't get the tax top up, they may be able to reduce their tax bill by contributing to a pension. So reduce their national insurance contributions, reduce their corporation's tax bill. It's not something I can advise on. Check with your accountant if that affects you. But it's something to bear in mind, is the tax benefits of setting up a pension and paying into it, either as a sole trader or as a director of a limited company. And so we allow for all those scenarios for people to pay into from either of those. And as I say, from a frequency that suits them, so you can pay monthly, set up a monthly contribution if you want, or you can set up one contribution now and a few months down the track, or you've got some spare cash because your business is going quite well, put it into your pension. Bang, you can just send it on to Pensionbee and we'll reconcile it against your account. So it's nice and seamless. And we're really excited about it, that we can serve this part of the market.
Yeah, and I think, guys, for those of you who are self-employed, so I'm self-employed now, as you guys probably already know. So I basically contribute into a pension of my own via a limited company. So my pension contributions are an allowable business expense. So it basically means an expense to the business, and that can be offset against corporation tax, which Rishi has increased or will be increasing to 25% in 2023. So if you're self-employed, the beauty is that, obviously you need to begin planning. If you're self-employed, you don't have the luxury of having an employer necessarily that you're working for contributing the minimum amount. And if you're starting your own business, you're self-employed, you're probably looking at managing your business on a monthly basis, and you're looking at overheads, and you want to keep your overheads low, and you're trying to build your business. From an experience point of view, working in the industry, I've seen a number of instances where, this conversation around pensions for the self-employed kind of takes a back seat. And it's very, very easy to be 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years into a business, having never made any contributions into a pension. So it's really important to think about this a little bit earlier, and hopefully you gain a little bit of benefit from this discussion in terms of how you can actually begin. But having a little bit of flexibility to know that you haven't got to commit to a monthly contribution and there is no limit, hopefully will be of use to everyone here on this live session here. So is there anything else that we need to cover, Martin, before we jump into the questions? Because there's quite a few here. I'm looking at the question section, and there's quite a few to get through.
There are. I'm happy to jump into the questions. I think I'll just add to what you were saying there about self-employed people and being into a business 5 years down the tracks, then start thinking about retirement. I've experienced that with people I talk to that have said that they're starting a business and pension is something they don't want to touch. They don't want to think about it. They're focused on their business, and that totally understand that. Like, you do want to focus on your business when you're starting out, but it's important that your business is one aspect of your financial life. And there's a whole other financial life that you need to try and manage there. And so it's important to really think about it as much as you can, much as you've got the headspace for it, future savings. And like Pete said, it's if you're not locked into minimum contributions or any set frequency, it might be worth having a thorough look at it to make that decision. And at least it's there for you. If you want to just trickle some money into it from the start, it could be a good option.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, so let's have a look at the questions right here. So guys, if you have questions, this is where you can pop them in. There's quite a few here. I'm just going to go straight up to the top of this feed. I've got 2 screens open, so just bear me 1 second. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything, and I want to make sure that they're being pulled over to the program that I'm streaming on right now. I believe that they are. Okay, cool. So I'm going to start from the very, very top. So there is a question here. Let's see if we can see this. There we go. How to choose the right pension fund. What would be your top tips? Have you got anything to add to this before I jump in on this, Martin?
We can't give financial advice, but what I would say is, what I'd say is have a look at the funds that are available to you, and also based on your current circumstances. So I can't talk for the entire market, but I can talk for what Pensionbee's got, right? And we do have some plans that are designed for people that might be approaching retirement, or the age that they want to draw down from their pension. So pensionbee.com/drawdown has a couple of funds where we talk about different retirement objectives that might be appropriate for people that are in those situations and scenarios to pick a plan that could suit them. A lot of qualifying words there, could suit you, but it's important that we aren't giving advice. You are making a decision for yourself. But my main top tip, as aside from picking a fund, would be what we've been talking about for a lot of this YouTube live right now is about contributions and taking control of it early on, as soon as you can. I don't know the age of the person asking the question, but it really depends on your situation. So have a look at the different options there.
Yeah. I mean, the main thing that I would add to this is, if you're trying to pick a pension fund, and it depends on what you mean, pick a pension fund. And again, I don't give a financial advice. So this is just for educational purposes only. If you're in, say, a workplace and you're looking at the pension funds that are available to you, then it's really important that you make sure that you understand the full range that are available. There is a discussion to be had around what your timeline to retirement is. So if you're in your 20s, the fund that you would pick will be very, very different to if you're 50 and you're retiring in, say, 5 years' time. So there is that risk element that you need to be mindful of if you're trying to pick a fund where your money is going to be invested specifically. But it's very important that you get sight of all of the options that you have available to you. There is an argument to say that if you are relatively young in your 20s and your 30s, and maybe you've got 20 years, 30 years to go, that you could afford to go into maybe a high risk fund, right? There is logic to say that that would be the best course of action for you, because you want your money to work as hard as possible. But again, you need to make sure that you understand what the risk tolerances are, and just make sure that you get sight of all of the options that are available to you. Obviously, make sure that you check on cost. That's going to be really, really important, because cost can be a drag on your performance. But you also do need to bear in mind that, managing pensions and administering pensions in itself is a very cost heavy activity. So you've got to have a look at what you're getting as part of the package. And so make sure you just have a look at those things. So the options that are available to you in terms of the actual funds, yes, do have a look at cost, but don't let cost be the determining factor of what you're doing. Really, you're investing for the long term. So you really want to make sure that you've got your money working as hard as possible for you as quickly as possible in your selection. So I hope that actually helps. Let's have a look and see what else we have here. So guys, Layla's here. T, thank you very much. Thanks for being here, guys. Looking dapper in that blue suit. Cheers, mate. You must be looking at something else. I think that's an Instagram post reference you're making there. Cheers, mate. Kevin's here. Right, let's see what we've got here. There is a self-employed question here, and this is it right here. If I'm self-employed, best way to set up for a pension? Thanks. What would you?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously you have a self-employed pension pot, so obviously you can use Pensionbee. But is there any tips that you would give?
It really depends on the circumstance of your business. So, like we're saying, if you're a sole trader, there's certain tax benefits. If you're a limited company director, there's also certain tax benefits. Obviously, I'm going to promote the Pensionbee method here, and we've got the self-employed pension, but which you can set up and contribute as you like. But the best way to set it up would be simply to sign up and start it up, and the sooner the better, and set up contributions that suit you, suit your circumstance, and how often and how much you want to pay into them. But yeah, the top tip is simply to just get started. I think is the important thing to get across.
Yeah. And I think if you're self-employed, the best way to set up a pension really is that you need to basically make sure that you're selecting a provider. So there are a number of providers out there. You've got Pensionbee, obviously. There's a few others that you can have a look at. Vanguard, obviously. I think Hargreaves Lansdown have them. You've then got other sophisticated providers like AJ Bell, for example. You obviously need to make sure that you select a provider. You do have a follow-up question here as well, which basically is asking also what is a SIP. So a SIP is a self-invested personal pension. So it's where you're investing into a pension yourself, and it's basically being administered or managed under your own kind of like wind, if you will. SIPs as an engine to use for retirement. So you could go down the private pension route, you could go down the SIP route. There are arguments to say that with a SIP, you have more flexibility in terms of the kind of assets you can invest in. You can put commercial property, for example. So it's great for maybe a business owner who, for example, has a business and they own their office block and they want to essentially put their office block as an asset that their pension owns. That can then generate rental income into the pension, then increasing the value of the pension as well. So SIPs are great. They may not necessarily be the best for everybody, depends on your circumstances. For that, in terms of understanding which one you should go for, a SIP or a personal pension, you will need to see professional financial advice, because, a SIP being a SIP doesn't mean it's right for you at any given time. You need to make sure you're making the right selection based on your circumstances at that given time. So I hope that answers the question. Thanks for the question. Let's go down and see if we can find another one. Someone's asking here, is this being recorded to review again later? Yes, it is. Theatre 17. Carly, welcome, Carly. Let's have a look. Kevin's actually saying on here, this is Kevin. So Kevin is one of the guys who's really, really active on my channel. And my dad is similar to yours, Pete, but my dad is proud to admit it to me. He is quality as well, Kevin. He's got a really good sense of humor. But on a serious note, though, that's one of the things that really does kind of like, it haunts me. And I was probably about 17, 16, 17 when my dad was having this conversation. And ironically, it was probably the only time that I saw my dad talk about an investment. And I didn't even know it was an investment product at the time. It wasn't until I started working in the industry, I was like, yeah, that's the thing that my dad was worried about. But it was the only time that I heard him talk about an investment or money product, thinking I need to do something with the intention to actually do some planning, albeit that it was too late. It was the only time that I ever heard it in my household. So cool. There is a question here. Is it better to consolidate all funds from other jobs? What do you think, Martin? I know you can't give advice, but what's your view on that?
Yeah, I can't give advice, but that is exactly why Pensionbee exists, right? We exist to bring pensions together to make it easier for someone to take control of all those different pensions from different places. So think about just the logistics of it. If you've got pensions dotted around the place from different jobs, you have to stay on top of different fee structures across different providers. You've got all this different paperwork from different providers coming in. No one likes reading paperwork, right? So do you want all that stuff coming in that you have to deal with, or do you want it all in one place? And that's exactly why we exist. If it's right for you, consolidate with a pension like Pensionbee, and then we do away with paperwork. We've got it all digital. One all-in fee structure that you can see. It's very transparent, and account management, right? So we're very proud of our beekeepers, as we call them, which are our account managers, and you have one of those through your entire life cycle with Pensionbee. So right from the consolidation aspect, managing your pension, through to if you want to draw down, you have dedicated account support, and that's sometimes makes it really special that people can have this dedicated point of contact. So there's a few things to consider, but I'm obviously, without being able to say that's the right thing for you specifically, this is why we exist, and so we feel that it's a very important reason to exist.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, Martin's already mentioned, you need to think about the whole management point of view, right? So if 19.8 billion quid is being left and missed because you worked at X company, but you don't know who the administrator is, you don't have any of the details, at what point are you going to bring it under your purview? Oftentimes people will kick it down the road, but by kicking it down the road, well, when are you actually going to pick it up? You kick it down the road, then it's like it's 5 years later on, you've completely forgotten that you might realize, but guess what? You're busy doing something at that point. So I think it's really, really important that, intent is really, really key. If you're going to be looking at it properly, really look at it. And if consolidation is the best thing for you, the benefits of consolidation is you're going to get it into one place, right? You'll be able to see it in one place. It's all manageable. It's all rolled into one manageable account. Why have 3 or 4 different accounts where you can have it in one? So again, there are some key considerations around who you basically select. You obviously making sure that you're not giving up any guaranteed benefits. Those things are really, really important as well. Making sure that obviously you're happy with the fee structures and you do your due diligence around the company that you select. Are they authorized, regulated by the FCA? Do you have protections in place on the Financial Services Compensation Scheme? These are all things that are very, very important. But, is it best to consolidate? If you want an easy way of managing your pensions, then I would say absolutely yes. But you obviously need to make sure that you're picking the right provider for you and you're doing your due diligence in doing so as well. Right, let's see what else we have on here. Right, so there is a question on here. This is from T, actually. This is a big one. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, Martin, but I do have a bit of a view on this. So my employer gives an option to sacrifice bonus payments, providing a 5% top up as an incentive. Would you recommend putting a lump sum into a pension pot or an ISA? Okay, so I can't give advice, obviously, but this is my view. If you have the ability to sacrifice bonus to go into a pension pot, and they're giving you a 5% top up as well, I think that's pretty generous offer. I think the question that you need to consider here is, do you need access to the money? Because if you don't, then maybe the pension is the better way for you to go. If you're going to need access to the money, so for example, you might be relatively young, you might want to buy a house, right? Then if that money is going to be useful for a deposit, then you might not want to put it into a pension, because we've already alluded you can't access to the pension at the moment until age 55. That is going to be moving to 57. So if you're going to need it in the short term, probably not. An ISA would be a really nice place for you to put it, because at least it will be tax-free still, and you'll be able to access it as and when you need it, if you do need it. So there's some considerations there. But if you've got, a 5% top-up is very, very generous as an incentive. So you've got a pretty good employer there, I would imagine. Really, really good. I don't know if you're going to add anything to that, Martin.
No, exactly right. It depends on personal circumstance. But yeah, free money is free money. If it's right for you, consider if that's the right option for you. And like Pete was saying, if you need it now or you can leave it till you're 57 or whatever. That's an important thing to consider. So really, it's worth doing the sums on the different scenarios. Is how I'd approach this.
Yeah, perfect. Right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, so there's one from Marky. What has Marky said? I have two pensions, one a final salary, the other a small one with standard life, which I have just started using drawdown as a way of receiving a. Let's have a look. There's a part two to this. Receiving a monthly income, but I am unhappy with the performance of the standard life pension. Could I move it to another provider with a better track record, if there are any, after I have started the drawdown? Okay, really, really good question on this. Okay, so there are some key things here, and this is, again, please don't take this as advice, but I can give you views that will certainly, hopefully, help you. Performance is important, okay, especially if you're using it as a drawdown right now, Mark, because you probably have an income requirement, and if it's not meeting that income requirement, then you may find this as being a bit of a problem, as most people actually would. Now, with standard life, I would probably have a look at what you've actually got. So what are you invested in? The fund, is it right for you? Maybe do a bit of a review on the fund specifically at the moment. And I would probably be asking the question of, has it historically performed really, really badly, or is this just a one-off? I mean, look, the markets have been pretty difficult over the last 12 months, right? So it may just be that actually it's the sign of the times, and that's the way it is. So I would definitely have a look at maybe some of the historical performance. Is it a one-off, or is it historically been like that? If it has historically been like that and you want to transfer it to another provider, I would strongly recommend that you go and take financial advice, though, because you need to make sure that where you're going to move it to meets your expectation. And this is where financial advisors will do a really, really good job. They'll sit down with you. They'll ask you what your income requirement is. They'll have a look at all of your asset bases. So your final salary scheme, for example. They'll have a look at what money your expenses, all that kind of stuff. They take that whole picture into consideration, and then they try and find a solution that might meet your income requirement. I mean, there is such a thing as a safe level of withdrawal. That's typically between 3 and 4%. So we also want to make sure, because of that life expectancy thing that we spoke about a little bit earlier on, that you're not actually wanting to take out more from your pension than is sustainable, because you don't want to run out of income. And I've seen it where clients have run out of income before. So I can't give you a direct answer as in like you should do this, this, and this. In this scenario, mate, if it is a case of you've looked at the performance of it and it's not a one-off and it isn't performing well and it's not meeting your income requirements and you want to do better, you really, really should have a look at taking some financial advice, because you don't want to move it from standard life, move it to someone else, and then you get to the other place and the exact same thing happens again. Then you move into the cycle of moving things around all of the time, and possibly be out of the markets and maybe miss out on some growth and so on and so forth. So that's what I would say to that one, Marky. I hope that's helpful. But yeah, I know that you can't really give advice on that, Martin, so I'm not going to throw it your way.
That's okay. I can actually, I'd be happily touch on the mechanics of it though. You can, if you wanted to, depending on the provider, move an existing pension that it's already been drawn down from into another provider. That is possible, but like Pete says, do the due diligence on what you've currently got and what's out there. There is actually an initiative that the FCA has instigated in the last couple of months called Investment Pathways. And what it means is that some providers in the market, and we at Pensionbee do this as well, have a few plans designed based on different retirement objectives. And you can see these in our context on pensionbee.com/drawdown. And there's some plans there based on where you're at in your retirement journey. So it's worth having a look at that, potentially, worth having a look at what other people in the market, other companies in the market are doing around that. But yeah, it is about your personal circumstances, but there is some sort of help that's trying to be pushed by industry now in that space, and it might be worth looking at in your circumstance.
Perfect. That's great. Cheers for that, Martin. Right, there is one question here from Money Whiskey. So, current pension is underperforming. I am an employee. Is it worth transferring this pension to a SIP when I change jobs rather than to the pension provider the employer is dealing with? Really, really good question. Again, some of the variables that we've already spoken about will come into this. You need to make sure that a SIP is going to be the right option for you, and maybe not even a private pension, for example. One thing I will say though is that if you go into like workplace schemes and administrations of workplace schemes, sometimes they actually have a cap on how much they can actually charge you. So sometimes it could be cheaper transfer it into the employer that you're going to, but you would need to have a full view of the options where you're going in order to make an informed decision. I would say that it will be a case of checking it out and reviewing it when you're at that juncture, and possibly then maybe doing a bit of research, maybe seeking a little bit of help, maybe a little bit of advice on that specifically. But you do want to make sure that you're weighing up all of the options that you have. SIPs can be expensive sometimes, so because of the extra capabilities that you have within a SIP. So you want to make sure that you're not going to be paying for something that you're not necessarily going to use. So yeah, just evaluate at the time. Would you add anything to that, Martin?
No, that's exactly what you're saying. Evaluate it. Look at the fee structures. Like you're saying, your workplace employer, your workplace pension provider might have a special rate because of the employer. It really depends on the circumstance. So just weigh those things up, the costs that are there, and what you want to do with your pension. Like Pete says, SIPs have a bit more you can do with them in terms of being able to buy and sell the underlying assets yourself. If you want to have that kind of control, it's up to you.
Perfect. That's great. There is a question here from David. Let's have a look. All right. Should I use an IFA, or is Pensionbee a good place to put my 3 pensions? Does Pensionbee get good returns? Okay, so let me just answer the first bit of that. Then I'll let Martin talk about the returns if you can. So I think whenever you're talking about pensions, it is not a decision to be taken lightly. So I would always say that, if you're unsure about what you're doing, then you should seek financial advice. Period. Because pensions can be quite complex things, and sometimes you do need the help. Now, Pensionbee obviously a provider, so they basically can help you consolidate and help you invest it, all that kind of stuff. If you're not taking the advice in actually using them, then the decision is down to you. So if you do want to use Pensionbee, you don't want to see a financial advisor, make sure that obviously you're doing the due diligence on Pensionbee, and making sure that you understand how they work and that you're comfortable with how they work as well. In terms of performance, I guess, Martin, you'll be able to talk more about that than anything else, bearing in mind that obviously past performance is no indication to future performance as well.
Yeah, exactly right. And but what we can say on that is that there are 9 plans that Pensionbee has, and they all perform in different ways because they have different strategies. So a couple of our plans are weighted very heavily in equities, and as a result, over time, their performance can be better than something that's sitting in mostly bonds or fixed income. But it really depends on your circumstance and where you're at with your financial journey and how close you are to retirement and when you want to draw down on those funds. And as Pete says, past performance doesn't indicate future returns. However, on our performance, we can give you factual information. If you go to pensionbee.com/blog, we actually have a recent blog from January that talks about our plans performance as of Q4 2020. So you can have a look at that and compare how our different plans have got on. Again, but can't say it enough. Past performance doesn't indicate future returns, and your capital is always at risk with any investment product. But there is literature out there for you to be able to make that due diligence if you so choose.
Yeah, perfect. And I think that's really important to basically state. I actually consolidated some of my past pensions into Pensionbee, and from a personal point of view, the performance on them has been very, 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 very good. Actually, we've not even touched on the fact that you actually have a fossil-free fuel plan at the moment, which is really, really great for people who want to invest ethically and want their money to be doing really, really well for the world and for the future.
Yeah, we're really proud of this one. So it's worth bringing up now about when you're talking about performance, because it is mostly equity. I think it's 100% equity actually. Sorry, and it is us trying to make a change in industry. So we had at Pensionbee for the last few years a fund called Future World, and that aims to it's managed by Legal and General, and what it does is Legal and General will buy its way onto company boards and vote in shareholder resolutions to say, hey, you're not disclosing your carbon footprint appropriately. We think you should, and if you don't, we're going to disinvest from you, right? And so that's all well and good, but we had a lot of customers saying to us that that's not enough. They don't care that the asset manager is on the board of a major oil company. They don't want to be investing in oil companies whatsoever, right? So we went to market. I thought this is what our customers are telling us, and we really, should try and plug this gap, because it's fair enough that customers have that issue around ethical or green investing. So it's again something we've worked on with legal in general, investment managers, and we're proud to say that we kickstarted the fossil fuel free plan, and that actually doesn't invest whatsoever in oil companies or tobacco companies or weapons manufacturers, and it's actually really moving toward having a sustainable future, because it's all well and good having a great big pension pot when you retire, but if there's no world to retire into, what's it for?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
it's one to consider, one to look out for. Again, capital at risk, like anything with any pension investment or any investment, indeed. But you can check it out on our website and see if it's right for you.
Yeah, and there are 9 plans, by the way, so it's one of the 9 plans that you have there. So there is a question from Sarah here. Can I pay into a pension as a sole director of a company, direct from the business with engaging payroll? I have no payroll set up currently. Without engaging payroll, I think is what she means. So, yeah, I think my initial, you can. I think if you've got an accountant that's doing books for you, that's completely fine. I mean, it's a business expense. So all you basically do is you select how much you want to pay into the pension, you send that off, essentially. There is no reason why you can't do that. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, would you add anything to that, Martin?
Yeah, no, it depends on the personal circumstance, but I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do this. If you were to sign up with us and set up a contribution as a director, because you're the one controlling the funds, then you can sign off on sending those funds in. If you can control the bank account, there's nothing to really stop you. I guess the only nuance there is if you're an employee of another of a company and you're not a director of that company, and that doesn't sound like it applies to you, but just say this is another thing to consider. We would need to send off a form to get the employer to sign off on, to say they're happy to pay into their Pensionbee account for you. But it doesn't sound like that applies to you, so I don't see why you wouldn't be able to do that if it's right for you.
That's an interesting point you made there, and I didn't actually know you did that. Actually, so you can actually have an employee who works for a company. You can have their pension paid into you guys with sign off from the employer to say that they're happy to pay into a Pensionbee pension.
Yeah, and it's not something
Right.
we advertise too much, because we're not an auto enrollment provider, right? So your
Right.
company would still have to have an AE auto enrollment supplier, because it's law, and we
Mhm.
don't play in that space. We're not a workplace pension provider. However, we do have the mechanism to allow for it. If we have lots of customers that do say to us, "Hey, I like what you're about. My employer's okay to do this. Could I have them pay into my Pensionbee account?" And as long as they sign off on it and set the contributions up, then yeah, we can facilitate that.
Interesting. Okay, good. That's great. Thank you. There is a question here from Christian. Hey, Pete and Martin. Thank you for being here. I would like to ask you what to do. What do you think 21-year-old should focus on? Putting money into an investment ISA first or into a pension plan? Oh, this is a good one. This is a really, really good one. All right. So let me just give you my thoughts, right? And again, don't take this advice, but this is certainly something that I always think about, because these are the things that I wish that I knew when I was 21. If I could have my time again, I would do both. And the reason why I would do both is because, yes, you need to invest, and tax efficiency is the first rule when it comes to investing. So ISAs are fantastic, absolutely. But the minute you start your first job, if you're 21 years old, you should be paying into a pension anyway. I mean, auto enrollment now means that your employer has to just make sure you opt into it, because at the end of the day, you can still invest in your ISAs. You can still do all the things that you actually want to do, but you've got money working in the background that it's going to give you options later on in life. I mean, this is the great trickery of social media, right? We all want to, we all subscribe to this notion, or many of us subscribe to this notion of it's great to be a millionaire in your lifetime. Okay, well, not many people actually tell you that a pension is a great vehicle to actually help you get there in the background, just automated. We don't talk about this enough, and this is stuff that I wish that I knew. If I knew this at 21, I would have been paying into a pension at 21 at that very, very first job when I was stacking, shelves at Spar. When I was 17 years old, I would have paid into a pension then. That money would have been invested in the stock market and grown for me over the last, how many odd years now? I'm 41 now, so 20 odd years, right? 28 odd years. I didn't have that, so I haven't got a pot of money that has benefited from market growth over the last 28 years. So if you can, do both. I'm extremely passionate about this point. Do both, and do not, if you can, please, please, please don't opt out of your workplace pension. You're saying no to free money. And who says no to free money? Would you agree with that, Martin?
I
What's
would
your
agree
view?
with that. Don't say no to free money. Look, the thing is, you're saying focus on one or the other. The key thing is at 21, it's great that you're focusing on investing at all. That's fantastic. Well done to you. And then, yeah, weigh up what's better for you. You get free money out of one of them. There's tax relief to consider. But like any investment, capital at risk, all that sort of stuff, have a look at your options. But yeah, exactly what Pete said, basically.
Yeah. Cool. Right, have we got one here from? There's quite a few here. Okay, we're going to try and see if we can power through these. Let me just go back up. We were at Andy. Okay, here we go. So this is from Andy. Question: when is it not right to consolidate your pensions? Interesting question. Okay,
Yeah.
go. Do you want to go?
To say it is a very good question, because we do bang on about consolidation is really important, but there is another aspect of it, and it's not always the best thing for everybody. It depends on the pension scheme you've got, right? So if you've got a defined benefit pension, like Pete was saying, financial advice, it comes into play there. If you've got government sort of pensions that can't be transferred, then they can't be transferred, right? So there's different factors to consider. It depends on different fee structures you have, and some pensions also may not be defined benefit, but they still have locked in benefits regardless, depending on when you got it and who the provider was some time ago. So that some pension schemes might even offer things like life insurance built into them, or things like guaranteed minimum pensions. So that's a lot of stuff you need to consider that could prevent it making sense to contribute or to consolidate into a new defined contribution scheme. Those are the key things that I think would stop you wanting to do. And also, if that existing provider charges an exit fee or a transfer fee, there's no point paying for stuff you don't need to. So consider those things as well.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. If you've got any form of guarantees on the pension, then it's not the right thing for you to do. You don't want to be giving up guarantees for no guarantees. It doesn't make any sense to do that. And in my time, I have seen it where people have, unbeknownst to them, transferred a defined benefits final salary scheme into something else, because back in the day they had very, very high transfer values. This is when auto pensions freedoms was announced back in 2013-14. You could transfer a final salary. The transfer values were huge, and when I say huge, I mean like people were walking away with million quid sometimes if they'd been in a company for a very, very long time. In fact, companies were throwing 100, 200,000, 300,000 pounds extra at people because they wanted them to take that money. Why? Because if you're in a defined benefit scheme, the company has to find the money to pay your pension every single year for as long as you're alive and for as long as your spouse is alive. So for them, it sits on the balance sheet and it's something they have to account for. So for them, throwing away, £100,000, £200,000 to entice people to take that lump sum meant that they got it off the book. So if you've got any defined benefit schemes, any guaranteed minimum pensions, any kind of guarantees at all, definitely wouldn't be the right thing for you to do. There is one question here from V-Day. Hey, Peter Martin, can you talk about the pros and cons of transferring an old pension, i.e., for example, a nest into a SIP and picking your own investment funds? Many thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the pros and cons. How much control you want. So a SIP, like Pete was saying earlier, self-invested personal pension. The way we talk about SIPs in the market generally means something that you can tinker with the underlying investments. So you can buy in and out of certain companies, or like Pete was saying, the example, commercial property and things like that. So you can set up the structure of the fund to suit you. So that would be some of the pros, right? Like, do you want to have that control? Do you have the expertise to and time and patience to really play with it like that? The cons would be that you have to do all that stuff, right? So the pros of not investing in a SIP like we're talking about here would be that it's easy and you can just set and forget, right? So you pick a fund, let the pension provider manage it for you. You've got your fee you pay, and that's it. You don't really have to get involved too much. But yeah, that's the key differences. Again, capital's at risk with either of those options. So you're always making an investment decision. There's always risk associated to that. But it really depends on what you're into and if you want to be playing around with the underlying investments or not.
Yeah, and I think that's spot on. I think, again, these decisions are not light decisions to make. So if you are going to go into a SIP, it is that, do you have the ability to be able to make those decisions properly? Do you have the expertise? If you're going to use maybe a SIP provider, then obviously the costs, the fees that come alongside that as well are also very important. But how much tinkering do you actually really want to do? Different people have different requirements. It really depends on your requirements at any given point. But if you're looking at a SIP, I would, again, you need to really be seeking some real professional advice. A financial advisor will be able to help you out with that. Or if you're picking up a SIP provider, they will probably be able to offer you some kind of help in understanding what the options are, because you do want to make sure that the vehicle that you pick is the right one for you. Right, there is one from here, which is maybe, hi guys, is it a good idea to take out some of your pension when you reach the age of 55 years old? So when you, well, go on, Martin.
Depends on your circumstances, like anything else. It is important to note that with a personal pension, when you hit 55 or 57 in a few years' time, you can take 25% of it tax-free. And that works for some people because they want to do things like put it toward a house renovation or indeed buy a house, right? And so it really depends on your financial picture, what you want to be doing with your money, what'll set you up for living that, further 2, 3, 4 decades in retirement. So it could be right. It may not be right. You really, if you're asking yourself these questions, it might be appropriate to seek financial advice. And if Pete, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think so. Everybody has the ability to take tax-free cash when it comes to pensions. Actually, it's one of the great benefits of a pension. So just picture this, right? You work all the way through your life. You pay into this pension. You get all the tax relief. You get the free money from the government and from your employer. Then you get to 55 years old. You can access it, and you have the ability to take a quarter of it completely tax-free. So in simple numbers, you get £100,000. You can take £25,000 completely tax-free. You can do with it whatever you basically want. I have seen clients in my working experience who have had £1 million in pensions, £250,000. Now, some of them may decide they want to go and buy a property. Some people use it and go on holidays and buy cars and, set their children up or their grandchildren up with properties and cars or university fee money, right? You can do with it what you want. However, one key consideration that you have to bear in mind is this. By taking 25% of that lump sum in your pension, you are effectively reducing the amount of money that will be used to generate an income for you in the future. So this is where you really need to make sure that you're making the right decision and not kind of mindful of, oh, it's 25 grand, I can take that, I could do with that money because I want to buy X, Y, Z. You need to think about it from an income point of view. How much does that 25% actually reduce the amount of income that your pension will then be able to generate? So a key consideration there. A lot of the time, again, if you've seen a financial advisor, and again, with retirement, guys, these are not decisions to be taken lightly. Financial advisors will do things like, cash flow modeling, for example, to make sure that if you amass a pot of money, it will hopefully last you for a number of years. They try and build a picture for you. So you may want to seek financial advice within that to make sure that it is right for you. But is it a good idea to take out? It can be, yes. In some cases, it's not a good idea. It depends on whether you've got enough in your pension pot to basically last you for the length of time that you're going to be in retirement for. And as we've already alluded to in this live expectancy is getting older and longer for many people. So that's a key consideration to make sure that you bear in mind as well. Right, there's one here from Layla. Hi, Martin and Pete. I have a work pension set up by my employer with Nest. I have also opened one myself with Wealthify. Wealthify does top up every time I put money on there. That's really, really good. So yeah, I mean, if they're topping up for you, that's absolutely perfect as well. I don't know if there's a part 2 to that. There is a part 2. So what would pension be? What? So what can Pensionbee do for me? What Pensionbee do for me? I like to bring my work pension to Pensionbee, but I'm hesitating to redirect it to Wealthify, and I would pay any fees for removing my pension from the Nest to you. It's one for you, Martin.
Yeah, it depends on your employer. It's like we were saying earlier. You can transfer the pension that you're currently have your employer paying into, but we're not an auto enrollment provider at Pensionbee, so you would need to speak to your employer and see if they're comfortable paying their contribution that they pay to you into your Pensionbee plan. So that's one thing to consider. The second thing to consider is, compare the fees between Pensionbee and what you're paying with Nest. Make sure it's the right decision for you. and also compare it to Wealthify's fees. I don't know their fee structures off the top of my head. So have a look at what the different offerings are. Have a look at the different plans, see if they suit your circumstance, see if the fees make sense to you and suit your circumstance, and also the customer service aspect of all these companies as well. You know, what's right for you, who makes it easy for you, all that sort of stuff. It's all important. So you know, this is one where you'd probably need to have to do a bit more digging into it to just answer it directly. But there's a few things to consider around it.
Yeah, I mean, Martin may not say this, by the way, but I have, like I said, I've transferred a couple of my old pensions into Pensionbee. It's very, very easy. It's available on your phone, and that's the beautiful thing. And I think you've got an open banking thing where actually you can link it to your bank balances as well. So this is why pensions are deemed to be so archaic, because back in the day, what used to happen is this: you pay into a pension, you never see it. You see it when you're 55. Therefore, out of sight, out of mind, you just, it's there, but you don't know what's going on. Now, with Pensionbee, and you have it on your phone, so you can check your balance at any given time, and it's tied into your bank account. Well, actually, you can see whether it's going, if it's going up every single year. You can see on your phone that you have a pension worth X amount, and it's just that peace of mind. I would not say peace of mind, and peace of mind isn't probably the right phrase, but it's just that knowing that you've got X amount of thousands in a pension that you're going to be able to access later on in life. It brings it to a completely different dynamic, because what you see is always in your consciousness, and having it in your consciousness means that you're probably going to take action to make sure that you grow that money as much as possible. So increasing your contributions, making sure that you get salary sacrifices or bonuses that you can pay into it. It brings all of that into its purview. It's weird from a psychological point of view, but it's a great thing that I do like, by, you know, having transferred a bit into Pensionbee myself. I know you probably wouldn't say that, Martin, but I can. So there you go.
I'm happy you brought up the open banking point, though, because that is quite cool. Like, we have these integrations with providers out there, like Yolt, Emma, Money Dashboard, where you can see our chief engagement officer says it best. It's your today money with next to your future money, tomorrow money, right? It's because Pensionbees is this obtuse thing that people don't want to deal with. What we've done is like you're saying, Pete, bring them to the fore, and you can open up this app and see how much your bank account's got in it, see how much your pension's got in it, and next to your other ISA or whatever investments, and you can get this whole financial picture. And that's a really important thing, that you can go, wow, here it all is in one place. Now I can make decisions that are going to help me in the future.
And you know what, guys? It's all about your net worth as well, because your pensions form part of your net worth. So if you're concerned about what that number might be, well, guess what? You've got it on the phone. You've got it in an app somewhere, and you can tie it all together. I think it's great. It's, from a psychological point of view, it's perfect. There is a great question here, actually. Hi, guys. I'm 27 years old, and I've worked for 7 companies since I graduated, and have different separate pensions with all companies. Could you give me what I could do to combine them all? Can you tell me what I can do to combine them all? So, Martin, I'm going to let you go on this, because this is your forte.
This is what we do. You know, again, capital at risk, and do your due diligence. But at Pensionbee, this is why we exist, to bring disparate pension pots together. Interesting, you've put the stat there of 7 companies since you graduated. We're seeing that people work in 11 different companies in their entire life, but you're 27 and worked in 7. That's wow. That's quite cool. You've got a lot of exposure there and experience from doing that, no doubt. But yeah, this is the right in why we want to help people out, is get those pensions in one place, and so you can see them all in one place and take control of your financial future. So I'm not sure. I don't. You know, it's pushing the Pensionbee barrow, obviously, but that's
yeah. And guys. Yeah, and guys, if you do want to have a look at them, obviously they're by no means the only provider that does do this, but if you do want to use them, there will be a link in the description boxes to this video. So if you want to watch it back, you can literally just click on that link. It will take you to the website, and it will just show you the process on how you actually get it done. It's very, very simple. So yeah, really good question there, mate. Let's see what we've got here. There's quite a few. Are you okay for time, Martin? Because I'm conscious we're now at like 11:15.
Half my tea here, so I'm good.
Good man. Right, here we go. So this is a question here. At 69, is Pensionbee a good place to move my pensions? Is drawdown working at Pensionbee?
We do have a drawdown product, yes. So if you were to transfer to us, you could draw down from your pot with Pensionbee. We offer some pretty cool tools around it. So obviously it's online based. So you can do some modeling. We've got a drawdown calculator where you can see your tax-free cash versus your taxable income, if you were to take that out as well, and see how much tax liability you might have. We're looking to enhance our drawdown capability this year. We're very keen to. It's not in the mobile app currently, for example, and we want to bring it there. because people are using we're all about having it very easy to access. So why would we not have the drawdown capability in our mobile app as well? So something on the radar for us. I can't tell you whether or not it's a good idea for you to do it. Again, depends on your personal circumstance and your existing provider and the fees you're paying there versus what you'd be paying with us. But certainly you could draw down if you chose to move across.
Fantastic. Yeah, so like this is maybe do a little bit of due diligence, check them out. Like I said, there will be a link in the description to this, so check them out. Can they phone in and speak to somebody or speak to someone online to
Yep.
kind of get a bit more information and stuff?
Certainly can. So yeah, as I was saying earlier, we've got our beekeepers, and they are there 9 till 6, Monday to Friday, and both phone, live chat, email, whatever works for you. We want to be accessible to you. So yeah, give us a call and ask some questions.
Fantastic. Right, there is a great follow-up question actually that this person has asked. I'm going to put this on here because we've not actually touched on this at all. If I die when I retire, can I forward the pension pot onto a relative?
Yeah, really good question, and something we're really trying to push actually at Pensionbee. It's called a beneficiary that you'd set up in your account, and we've only just made it a little bit better and easier for people to set those up within the product. So very keen for people to be using that, because it is important that people have that later stage planning and put in who they would want to leave their pension to should they die. It's unfortunate that we do have accounts that don't have people set up, and so if they do die or when they die, it is hard to deal with, and it's important that you do consider these things. No one likes to think about death. Fair enough. It's a touchy subject, but it's a reality, right? And so it is worth thinking about. And the answer is, yeah, we can facilitate that by setting up beneficiaries. In fact, the rules currently is if you die before, I think it's one of the questions came up as well in the chat here.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, if you die before your 75th birthday, and you haven't started drawing down from your pension, it can be passed on tax-free to your beneficiaries. Again, it depends on circumstance, but that's something that is quite beneficial, that there are some tax benefits to doing so. So yeah, consider it. If you were to have an account with us, we make it really simple to set up the beneficiaries, and it's worth, depending on your estate, talking to a financial advisor to work out the best way to do it for you, but there are tax benefits there as well.
Perfect. Yeah. No, I wouldn't add anything to that, but yeah, really, really great. There's a question here from Tom actually, which is a good one. I have a previous pension coincidentally with in a Pensionbee and my current workplace pension. How does it work to have separate ones?
They're separate. So, like was not many people know about this, but you can have your employer pay into your Pensionbee pension. But again, it depends if they're willing to. Us not being an auto enrollment workplace provider, but it is something we can facilitate. So you could theoretically do it. But if it's a case of, you have your Pensionbee pot kicking along and you have your existing workplace one that you don't want to move, that's fine. Have your workplace one paid into by your employer. Up to you if you want to put contributions to your Pensionbee one separately. That's totally your choice. But should you leave this employer, then you could transfer that pension to Pensionbee. And the idea is that you'd have your Pensionbee pot follow you around, right? So you could have 14 jobs in your career, and just every time you leave that previous job, you get that pension transferred into your Pensionbee pot, and it's just there for you until you're ready to retire.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to just bear in mind. They are separate, so obviously they'll be doing different things, but just make sure that you're reviewing them at least every single year. So with Pensionbee, it's on your phone. You can see it, you can review it, you can see how it's doing. Just make sure that you do the same thing with the workplace one as well. Because and actually, whilst we're talking about workplace ones, most people who sign up for auto enrollment, if you haven't selected your fund specifically in your workplace scheme or your auto enrollment scheme, you're likely going to go into a default fund. So I would always say that it's probably best as well that you take the exercise to find out what other options you have, what other funds you have available within your workplace scheme to make sure you're in the right place. Because we alluded to at the very, very top of this, which was the first question, you want to make sure that your money's working as hard as possible for you. So make sure you get sight of it and make sure you review it on a regular basis as well. All right, let's have a look and see what we've got in here. Okay, so there's this one, Martin. Do you have any advice for dealing with pensions in multiple countries? Okay, this one, obviously this isn't advice, but if you're in multiple countries, there will be different tax pension legislations in different countries. So you need to seek professional advice for this. You need to see a financial advisor, really, one that hopefully will be able to advise give you an idea of what you can do based on the restraints of the UK pension legislation and possibly with the idea of pulling some in from abroad. But you would definitely need financial advice and professional advice from this. I don't know if you'd add anything to that, Martin.
Yeah, no, we only deal with UK pensions at Pensionbee, and like you're saying, professional advice is what you need in circles. It's not just the UK pension rules; it's the other countries' pension rules.
Hmm.
You know, I'm Australian. I moved here and wanted to bring my pension from Australia to the UK. Couldn't do it, and not because the UK rules. Well, maybe that would be a factor as well, but I didn't even get that far. The
Hmm.
Australian pension provider I've got said, no, our rules are incompatible with the UK market. You can't do this. So there's a lot to consider there. So yeah, definitely professional advice is
Hmm.
suitable.
Yeah. I'm just going to have a look quickly because Hannah in my group actually asked a question. Anna, I don't know if you're still here or not, but can you pop that question back in? Because someone's commented saying, I'd like to know the answer and I can't find your question. There was a question from Money Whiskey here, which was kind of exactly the same. He was saying, I've worked for a series of EU companies, countries. Are those transferable? The same thing would apply. Just make sure that you're seeking some advice, because you're going to have different pension rules across different countries and stuff. So you need to make sure that you're taking advice for that. Okay, so here's a question for you. This is maybe a straightforward one. If someone was to be in need of the funds before retirement age, is it possible to take money out of the pension pot?
Generally, the answer is no, and we certainly wouldn't facilitate that. It's definitely not encouraged by HMRC. It's frowned upon, and there are high tax fees that are levied against people that do this, and the companies that facilitate it. And so we obviously don't want to play in that space. Nor should we, nor should anyone. Pensions are there as a saving for later in life and to fund retirement, so they're not intended to be used prior to that age. So it's definitely something we don't go anywhere near. There are circumstances though, when it comes to ill health or terminal illness,
Mhm.
that can allow you to access your pension pot if you were to die within the next, say, 12 months. It really depends on your own circumstances, and there's a lot of, I guess, hoops to go through to have that enabled. But it's a very serious situation you have to be in for that to occur. But generally speaking, the answer is no.
Yeah,
You should
and
also
yeah.
watch out for anything you Google that says early pension access and get your money before 55 or whatever it is. Wow, like look out,
Mhm.
due diligence, because it's probably dodgy.
Yeah, I would definitely second that. Yeah, please be careful. Please be careful. And yes, only in really extenuating circumstances can you access it before 55. And, they are really extreme extenuating circumstances. So, yeah, generally speaking, if it's in a pension, 55, 57, that's the date that you're looking for. There is one question here from Dave, and Dave is asking IFAs charge 1% plus platform fees 0.7 to 0.9%. Is Pensionbee a better option? This obviously isn't going to be a straightforward question because the service that you're getting from an IFA is very, very different because you're paying for their advice, you're paying for their modeling, they're helping you build a financial plan, they're helping you understand and model your finances in retirement. So they're providing you with a full map. The way I used to explain it when I was advising was, we're giving you a roadmap. So we're giving you a roadmap of how you're going to go from A to B and how the money is going to drip in along that journey. You're paying for that. So it's not a direct comparison. It's trying to compare apples and pears. It's not the same thing. But I suppose from a cost point of view, yes, it is a consideration. But this is the thing, right? Cost is only an issue in the absence of value. If an IFA is providing that roadmap for you, telling you how your money is going to drop in across your journey, you have to ask yourself, is that enough value to justify the 1% that they will charge you? For many people, because they don't want to have the headache of having to worry or having to look at it themselves and possibly get it wrong, for many people, that is really good value, 1%. For some others, it's not. So it's not a direct answer because it's not the same thing. It really isn't the same thing. But I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Martin.
No, exactly right. It is personal circumstance. I mean, our fee structures go from 0.5% through to 0.95%, and it really, different plans do different things. And like Pete's saying, IFAs also do different things, and they provide a different sort of benefit if it's suitable for you. Yeah, if you're getting value out of it, cool. If you find it's expensive and you're not getting the kind of value you want out of an IFA, then maybe that's something to consider, that maybe you don't need to use them. But it really depends on the interaction you're having with them and your personal circumstance.
Absolutely. There was a question here that which we've already covered, which was what happens if you with your pension if you die before the age of retirement. So we've already explained how that can be passed on to beneficiaries, so on and so forth. You need to do a nomination, all that kind of stuff. There is one from Fahad here though, and he is asking. If I pay 6.8% towards pensions from my salary and my employer pays 3 to 4%, is that a good scheme? That's pretty good, right? I mean, that's 6.8 or 6 to 8. I mean, that's pretty much in line with what the minimums are right now for a workplace pension scheme, really, because, the contribution from your employer is 3% minimum. You have to contribute 5%. So that's pretty good if they're offering a little bit more. Not all employers do. So it's a pretty good contribution rate from an employer. Would you
Yeah,
say? Yeah.
yeah. I don't know the ordinal percentages for my head, but that sounds about right, and it does look a bit higher than I think what the minimum is. So there's it doesn't sound like a bad scheme. Is it a
Mhm.
good scheme in terms of the fees that you're paying for it? That's another question to consider, and the performance is another thing to consider. But from what we're reading here, yep, sounds okay.
Okay, cool. Right, guys, I'm looking at the time and we are approaching an hour and a half. So apologies, there are still quite a few questions here. We're not going to be able to get to all of them because we could be here for another probably hour or so. So I am going to pick one more question for us to cover. I do apologize. The fact that there are still 152 of you on here means that maybe we need to consider doing this again or doing more versions of this where we bring in experts on. But I really do appreciate every single one of you being here. I do want to be respectful of the time as well. So let me pick one here because there was one really, really good question that I want that caught my eye, which was actually the next one in line. It's this one right here. So this is from V-Day. And this is one that, I know that my dad would definitely resonate with. What advice can you give to people 50 plus who are now trying to get a pension together? This is the case for my mum. She didn't know about any of this till a year ago. Any thoughts before I kind of kick into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's good that that your mum's decided to take charge of her financial future. We sort of talk about, oh, does it get too late? Well, no, there's no too late. It's doing it is better than not doing it, right? And people are going to be, like we've been saying, live for a long time and could be working longer. So 50 isn't too late. And I think the important thing is to take that first step and take charge of your pension scheme and your financial future, and get all the different bits of paperwork you have with different providers and have it in one place. And just it sucks. Everyone hates paperwork, but just start, pick it up. Make a game of it. Do 10 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow, whatever it is. Work through it. Find a supplier or provider that can make it easy for you to consolidate those pensions as well if it's right for you. That could be an option. And yeah, that's what I would say is just, yeah, it's great that she started. That's the primary bit of advice is start, and she's done that, so that's important.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I think it's really important that she understands the options, and the fact that she's looking into it that's the first thing, right? Like I said, my dad this didn't register for my dad until 58. Like, and the panic that I saw in him, just knowing that he didn't have anything at all. We're living in a completely different world now, where you do have the ability to actually start with very, very little. Back then, I mean, I was in Nigeria at the time. I wasn't here in the UK. The pension system in Nigeria is just like, I wouldn't even know where you would even begin investing into a pension in Nigeria, period. But in the UK, you probably would have had minimums at that point to actually begin. Now you don't really have those things. So the fact that she's looking at it right now, she may consider it being too late, but it actually isn't. She can start. The most important thing is for her to start and really kind of seek the help that she needs. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she has to go see a financial advisor immediately. And I'm sure that you will help her. So you attending this kind of session is going to be a huge help because you've hopefully got some really tangible things that you can go and share with her. You can get her to watch this back and help her kind of get an understanding of some of the things that she can do. But the important thing is select a provider. It might be Pensionbee, it might be somebody else. You can start contributing into these things now with £1 if you wanted to, £10, £20. Just begin. Getting on the journey. Oftentimes the first step is the hardest, and as long as you take that first step, that's the most important thing. It becomes so much easier from there on out. But guys, thank you so much for joining. And Martin, thank you, mate. An hour and 33 minutes.
Thank you. Happy to be here. This is good. This is good fun. Like the
But yeah,
questions.
yeah. But hopefully, guys, in terms of themed live sessions, this is not going to be the last one. I do want to do a number of these through the year across different subjects and different areas of investing and finance and so on and so forth. So this, I wouldn't say it's been a trial, but I was nervous about this one because, being a provider on, people are like, oh my God, am I going to be sold to? I hope you found it educational more than anything else. My goal here is to kind of share knowledge that I wish that I had when I was 20. So hopefully you found this really, really helpful, really, really insightful. As I said, if you want to watch this back, please do share. I would really, really appreciate it. I haven't been paying attention to any of the stats on my second screen here. I just need to pull that over because I do need to ask you guys a bit of a favor. There are only 56 likes and there's been 170 of you at one point. So before we sign off, if you can just smash the like button, that will really, really help me with the YouTube algorithm because that's really, really important. But you can review this, play this back. It's going to be saved in the live library. Thank you so much for being here. There's only 63. Come on, guys. There's still 139 of you on there. Let's get it up to 100, please, before we sign off. But I do appreciate you being here. Thank you so, so much. The video on Tuesday is going to be different. We're talking about something else that isn't really related to investing, but hopefully will help you earn a little bit more money. There'll be more collaborations that I'm going to be doing around side hustles because I understand I talk about money, right? I talk about investing, but it's nice to earn a little bit of extra money. And, side hustles are really important. We're at 83, guys. Come on, 17 more. It's really important to actually be able to earn money so you can actually invest that into the market and actually get going. So I do appreciate you. Thank you so, so much. And by the way, I haven't mentioned this, but I have been nominated for British Bank Awards, Online Financial Influencer of the Year. I will post that link at the bottom and the description of this video as well. You get entered into a prize draw for £1,000 by voting for me. So help me out. I'm in really, really big companies. Some of the guys that I've been nominated next to have been doing this kind of stuff for years. There's one guy who's got a massive podcast. So it will be nice to win something as a result of all this. But I do appreciate it. Thank you so much, Martin, for joining us. We'll see you Tuesday. And our next live, by the way, is going to be on the... when is it? It's going to be on the 21st of March. So thank you so much. We'll see you then. Cheers.
Cheers, Pete. Cheers, everyone.